Hail, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Satan and Coffee, a Sunday Black Mass, Black Mass Sundays. Good to see everybody. How's it going? We got Sophie, we got Tree Sap. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Well, to begin, as always, hail Satan, hail Lilith, hail Lucifer, hail Paimon, hail Baphomet, hail thyself. We reject the Trinity, we reject the baptism of John, and we reject the baptism of the Spirit. How is everyone? Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, I think it's funny that the second episode falls on New Year's Eve. So, the first episode of this fell on Christmas Eve, and now the second episode is falling on New Year's Eve. I mean, timing is, I guess, everything, right, everyone? So, for those that don't know, the music from Stoned for 2024, rock on, rock on. Best way to go into any, transitional period is elevated as all fuck. Of course, of course. For those that don't know, I'm sure all of you know that the music in the background, that is our good friend Behemoth X, doing a Satan-inspired mantra. So nothing perfect to have in the background other than that, right? Stoked, not stoned. Oh, I saw stoned. He's a little heart in the way, so like I just saw ST and just assumed it was stoned. but still, nothing better than transitioning over elevated. So stoked and stoned, perhaps, eventually at some point, right? So good to see everybody. So last week, we kind of talked about the different representations of Satan and Lucifer. So just to kind of lay out the groundwork once again, I'm not going to repeat this every episode, but because it's the second one, I think it's important to kind of repeat it. I do look at Satan and Lucifer as the same entity. They're just different aspects of the same entity, right? So when I use terms, the devil, Satan, Lucifer, I'm referring to the same entity. Just there, I believe that they are different auric aspects of the same entity, right? So much like, we would label kind of emotional aspects to ourselves, like happy, sad, angry, depressed, things like that. I think that, those terms are interchangeable for the same entity, just different aspects that we're talking about, right? So when we talk about Lucifer, we're talking about enlightenment, we're talking about the light bearer, right? When we talk about Satan, we're talking about, the adversarial aspect of Lucifer, right? And when we talk about the devil, well, we're just pissing people off because why not, right? But so last week we talked about kind of like those different like aspects that Satan is kind of represented as in the Bible, right? The different animalistic aspects, the serpent, the bird, the wolf, the lion, the dragon, right? And what each one of those things meant, and how each one of those things, though the Bible likes to kind of label those as kind of like negatives, obviously each one of those aspects has a very positive aspect, right, for us. We talked about the 9 satanic statements and how the 9 satanic statements apply in modern culture. Again, this book might have been written back in the 1960s, but I find it highly valid and relevant in today's world, more so than the Bible. The Bible was written 2,000 plus years ago. I think it's a book that probably should be retired. But today what we're going to be going into is we're going to be going into the first book of the Satanic Bible, which is Satan, vernal diatribe. Okay. This element, the element that we're going to be focusing on with this, is fire. Okay, so this is a fire element. Okay, that we're going to be talking about. So I think it's interesting how these books are broken up. Let's talk about that for a second. So the Book of Satan is fire, and then when we get into the Book of Lucifer, it's air. So each one of these kind of falls into a, how we say, an element, right? And I think that that's important to kind of take into consideration. So when we get into the next book here, if I can get to it today, great, right? Here we go. Book of Belial, and that is Earth. Okay. So we've got fire, air, earth. Then they go breaks into the ritual, which we will talk about. The Book of Leviathan, which is water. Of course, that makes. And it kind of keeps going, right? And then we get kind of like the Enochian keys. So I find that kind of interesting that each element is covered in this, and I think that that is, yes, very much so, very much so. We will be getting into Leviathan, but kind of like much later into the series, right? Yeah, so we'll definitely be getting into that. But I do think that, looking at, kind of, how this is laid out, it's very important to notice, the correlation with the elements, right? And the reason this is important, right? So again, so this is a difficult position that I put myself in here, because, as many of you know, I don't outwardly identify as a Satanist, but there are many things to how it is, like how I believe things, that I believe that, philosophically speaking, Satanism is the only thing that really kind of makes sense, for a spiritual guide, so to speak, right? When it comes to just like, written word. However, I do believe that there is a highly theistic aspect to Satanism. And this is the reason why this show exists, is because I find it necessary to kind of talk about it, because nobody really talks about kind of like the theistic side. And one thing that Mystic and I kind of came to a conclusion on, actually the other night, was that sadly most theistic Satanism, like theistic aspects of Satanism, they get kind of loopy. A lot of people, right? There's people that kind of push it to a point where it's like, whoa, like, where are you going with this? And it feels more, like Hollywood theatric than anything else, with the direction that a lot of people go with, like kind of like this idea of theistic Satanism. And I kind of wanted to bring into this, something that hasn't existed yet, right? That hasn't really been planted out there, which is a calm conversation, talking about the theistic aspects of this, and also to kind of shut down the gatekeeping of people saying that Satanism cannot be theistic. I fundamentally disagree with that statement. I will always fundamentally disagree with that statement. I believe that, Rook, welcome. I believe that Satanism, very much so, can be and needs to be theistic. At least there needs to be kind of like an aspect of it that isn't so extreme that people are like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And then it also removes like the gatekeepy aspects of the atheistic Satanists going, well, if you cannot be a theistic Satanist, you can't tell somebody what they can or can't be. Robert Morton is is one good example. I don't think he's a gatekeeper. Okay, I'm not familiar with him, but I would definitely look it up, right? Um, so what we're going to be talking about, we're going to be getting into is the Book of Satan. So we're not going to be getting through the whole thing today because the Book of Satan, though not terribly long, I do believe that to kind of go through, provide, insight, direction, and, justification to each aspect. So there are a total of 1, 2, 5 parts to the Book of Satan. So anyone that's read the Satanic Bible, you're going to be familiar with this. Maybe you don't recall it. Maybe you didn't get too far into it outside of like already here. I've read this book several times. So here we go. So to begin with the Book of Satan, okay, with part 1, okay. In this arid wilderness of steel and stone, I rise up, my voice that you may hear. To the east and to the west, I beckon. To the north and to the south, I show a sign proclaiming death to the weakling, wealth to the strong. So, right off the bat, right, that fire aspect of the Book of Satan is prevalent. It's right there in your face, right? It's strong, right? It's hot. It's hot-headed. It's aggressive. And this isn't to say that to be taken literally as like we're going to kill the weak people, and if you're like, kind of like, what is it, Darwin's theory, right? Survival of the fittest kind of thing. I mean, that does have a place here, but that's not what we're talking about. So what we're talking about here is our own internal weakness and our own internal strength. Okay? Death to the weakling, wealth to the strong. We're talking about our own ability to rise above, right? Hence, if we go back into this, is I raise up my voice that you may hear. I raise my voice so you can hear. Death to my weakness, wealth and success to my strength. To become, to use that black flame to burn out the weak parts of ourselves, right? To bring that forth, to make it seen. And why should we not want to destroy the weaker parts of ourselves? The parts of ourselves that allowed us to be, victims, the parts of ourselves that, made us feel insignificant, made us feel unloved, right? We talked about, loving yourself and caring for yourself, last week. And that's a big aspect of this, right? Self-hatred is, a huge weakness, right? When you are constantly and consistently comparing yourself to other people and other people's success. And instead of trying to look at yourself and saying, I'm going to be a better me than I was yesterday. Right? I'm going to be a better me today than I was yesterday. We're constantly looking at other people's success and being like, well, I need to be better than this person. And then when we look at, the discouragement comes in, when we try to, advance to that point. So, okay, I want to be like this person. Like, for example, myself, I'm a huge influence on me is Gary V, Gary Vaynerchuk, brilliant individual, brilliant, entrepreneur. But the thing is if I were to constantly look at myself, and compare myself to him and say, I need to be bigger and better than Gary Vaynerchuk. Well, fuck. I mean, I'm going to feel like shit every fucking day that doesn't happen, right? Because I'm not comparing myself to, the lower version of him, right? I'm comparing myself to the successful version of him. And how long did it take Gary Vaynerchuk to become successful the way that he is, right? We can't compare ourselves to other people. We have to compare ourselves only to ourselves, okay? Only to who we are, right? and who we were yesterday to become a better version of ourselves today and tomorrow. And that is a much easier goal to meet every single day. And the thing is soon, through time, through effort, through strength, through the inner strength of yourself, right? You slowly begin to kill off that weakness inside of yourself and become a stronger version of yourself. That is what this is referring to. That stronger version of yourself that you can become each and every day. Some days you're going to progress 2 steps. Some days you might not progress on any, but then the next day you might move half a step. Those movements, however small, are still movements in the right direction. A 50-cent raise might not be much, but it's still 50 cents more than you were making yesterday, right? So we need to understand that the only thing we need to be comparing ourselves to is ourselves, and that should be the thing fueling us, because 5 years from today to the version of me 5 years in the future is going to be significantly better than the version I am today. If I learn to focus on me, if we learn to focus on ourselves instead of comparing ourselves to other people, because the more we compare ourselves to other people, you're comparing yourself to something that will never exist through you. It's not to say that you can't do anything significant. It's not to say that you can't do anything worthwhile that can make you famous and noticeable. Of course you can. But you will never do things the same way that someone else does them. That's just fact of life. It's just how it is. Right? So that's what this is referring to. Okay? So number 2, open your eyes that you may see, O men of mildewed minds, and listen to me, ye bewildered millions. And you most definitely can be stronger without doubt. Without doubt at all, you can most definitely be stronger. Second. Right? So, and again, the fire is like the fire aspect here that we're talking about. We're definitely talking about, that drive that, we need to have ourselves. It's fine. Some days we're not going to have that drive. I mean, that goes without saying, right? Not every day is going to be, a perfect day of, movement and growth. For me, that goes without saying. That is, a common sense thing. And on the days that we don't have that movement, that we don't have that fire inside of us to drive us, of course, we're going to feel shitty, right? Because we want that movement. We want that growth. Coffee, everybody. So, because it's Satan and Coffee, by the way, I'm going to be making mugs for Satan and Coffee, which will be sold on Threads for the Dead. Okay. So, look out for those. All right. So that way everybody can have their official Satan and Coffee mug, drink that coffee, and worship Satan. Just thought I would throw that out there. So open your eyes that you may see, O men of mildewed minds, and listen to me, ye bewildered millions. So here we're listening. Here we're getting, some feedback directly from Satan here, right? So here we're getting some feedback. So men of mildewed minds. So what is mildew? Mildew is like a gunk buildup, right? That happens over time, right? And when it comes to human beings, very similar happens to us. As we kind of move and progress and go forward and all of these things, our minds become mildewed, right? It becomes molded. It becomes tacky and sticky and nasty, right? Because we focus, as when we're young, we're excited by everything, right? When we're younger, some of you are in your 20s, then you might still be in that, that loop of excitement about everything new and everything like that. But once you're 30, 35, 40, the monotony of life begins to wear on you. And here we're getting some feedback directly from Satan here now, is that if you want to clean that gunk off, if you want to reopen that aspect of yourself, then open yourself to hear me. Listen to me. I am the king and God of this world. Listen to me. And open yourselves to what it is that you need. Because what happens, through the years is we get so stuck in the process of wanting to make everyone else happy, right? We want to make the boss happy. We want to make our partner happy. We want to make our parents happy. We want to make our fucking kids happy. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to make somebody you love and care about smile. But during that whole process, over years and years and years, right? When do you think about you, right? When do you think about yourself? And it's that lack of thinking of self that begins to wear down on us, right? I mean, what happens during this time of the year, Christmas, right? We call it's the season of giving, right? It's not the season of receiving, it's the season of giving. And what's the problem with it being the season of giving? Well, the initial problem that you run into is that you immediately become reliant on someone else to make you feel worthy. Nobody gets you a Christmas gift? Well, you automatically feel like shit. Exactly. People forget to give to themselves, right? It is the season for giving. And don't forget yourself. You need to give to yourself. Don't rely on others to make you feel validated. Don't rely on others to make you feel special, that you got a gift this Christmas, that you got the thing that you wanted. Get it for yourself. And then if somebody else gets it for you, now you have two. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Right? I'd rather have two than none. Right? Rather have one than none. Give to yourself. And this is very material. This is a very material thing. Like, obviously, this can be spiritual. This can be, ascension. Giving space to yourself, giving yourself time to think, giving yourself whatever it is you might need. But let's be honest. If you want a PlayStation 5, go buy yourself a fucking PlayStation 5. Don't wait for somebody else to get it for you. If you want an 85-inch flat screen TV, go get yourself an 85-inch flat screen TV. Don't wait for someone else to do it for you. Get it for yourself. Even if you have to save up throughout the year, you start in January and you save all the way down to, down the line right till you get to Christmas. Your goal is that 115-inch fucking, 8K television. Which is a little ridiculous, by the way. Like, I don't think that thing should even exist, but it does. But let's say that that's what you want, right? It's a $15,000 TV. Save from the beginning of the year to the end of the year and buy it for yourself. Don't wait for somebody else to get it for you. Because what happens when we spend the entire year, our entire year, telling everyone what it is that we want, what we want to do, right? Whether this is, I want to start my own business, right? Whether this is, I want that 8K 115-inch TV. I want a new car. I want to buy a house. Right? So sometimes we like to talk about these things as in manifesting, right? We talk about it and we manifest. So I think manifestation is more of an internal process than it is an external process, especially when we're talking about Satanism and the satanic ideal. Okay? There is power in secrets. There is power in secrecy. There is magic in secrecy. Because when you want something, when you desire something, you push and you push and you go for it. And what happens when you let that out and you say, I want to start my own business? You kind of relax a little bit because you let that tension that's inside of you, this needed tension that's inside of you, you let it out. You let it. And then you don't have that same drive that you did 10 minutes ago. Why is that? Because now you're sharing that energy with somebody else and hoping that that other person is going to reciprocate that energy that you have. And when they don't reciprocate that energy, psychic vampirism, they pull it. They don't even realize they're doing it, but it happens. It happens. When you start telling people about your plans and your ideas and the things that you want to do and the things that you want to achieve, they absorb that energy. And then you begin to see other people doing things around you that you wanted to do. And you're not achieving the things that you want to achieve. Why is that? Because you're letting go of your flame. You're letting go of your energy. That is yours. That is your power. Hold on to that. Don't talk about starting a business. Just fucking start one. And then when you have it established and the business is functioning and the business is working, then you can talk about it. Don't share your ideas with people that are going to steal your energy. I mean, we have phrases for that in our culture. Right? People that steal the limelight. Right? People that are going to be next to you because of your energy. And they're going to suck off of you. They're going to drain you. Don't be doing that. Shh. There's power in secrets. Keep your power. Number 3. For I stand forth to challenge the wisdom of the world, to interrogate the laws of man and of God. So what are we getting at here now? Right? So now we got Satan up front in our face here. Okay? I stand forth to challenge the wisdom of the world, to interrogate the laws of man and of God. So does this mean we become lawless and irresponsible? No, of course not. Right? Societal laws exist for a reason, regardless of the fact of them being based off of the Ten Commandments and being religiously based. Though I do agree to a certain extent, I don't think that laws should be necessarily based off of religious propaganda, right? I think it puts the church in a very specific position because this is something that has existed for a very long time where the church was the lawgiver, right? The church was, that direction and that control, right? When somebody did something wrong, the church was the one that, executed the punishment, right? The church was the law. And that kind of bled over, right, into society today. Now, there's a whole conversation about how, we can move and change laws that we're not going to get into to fit more of a kind of like societal base, like rather than like kind of like a religious base. And still work and function within, what is, considered right or wrong. Because there are some things that, that, for example, in the Ten Commandments, like coveting, that is just dumb, right? Capitalism is based off of coveting, right? Your neighbor got that 115-inch 8K TV and you want that motherfucker too, right? It keeps the economy going, right? Somebody just bought, a fucking Ferrari. You want one, so you get a Corvette, because you're too broke to get the Ferrari just yet. It's the same thing, right? It's like, coveting pushes society forward, economically speaking. The entire basis of capitalism is based off of it. Number 4, I request reasons for your golden rule and ask why and wherefore of the 10 commandments. Again, we're talking wise law based off of religious doctrine. Grant you, we've kind of spiraled outside of that, but the basis of the legal system is the 10 commandments. To this day, what do they do? You swear in a Bible, right, that you're going to tell the whole truth, right? And that is a requirement when you go to court, when you're going to testify, right, or when you're going to defend yourself. It's a requirement, right, that you put your right hand on a Bible. It's kind of interesting in a country that is not Christian to have so many religious aspects integrated into our legal system. Oh, is it? Okay, I was not aware of that. As far as I knew, this goes to tell you how much I've needed to be inside of a courtroom. Yay on me. So, and I'm not but you still have to say the whole truth, right? So, right? But so my ignorance, I'm proud of my ignorance on that, okay? So, let's just let that slide. The courts are supposed to be secular. Yeah, but are they though? Right? Because the entire basis of the legal system is based off of the 10 commandments. Exactly. It's something we've done for decades. Exactly. Right? Number 5. Before none of your printed idols do I bend, and he who saith thou shalt to me, my mortal foe. So, printed idols. This is an interesting one. Printed idols. Printed idols would be the laws. Right? So in the legal system, laws are worshipped, so to speak, right? They're not doing put up cult type, shit with the laws, obviously, right? That would just be kind of ridiculous. But the 10 commandments and the legal system are so intertwined, and the first commandment actually goes against the First Amendment in the Constitution. Thou shalt not kill. Is that the first one? Is that the first commandment? Thou shalt not kill. DA, help us out. What's the first commandment? Freedom of religion. Isn't that one, thou shalt not worship any other graven image other than thy Lord God, for thy Lord God is the jealous God? I think that makes sense. Yeah, freedom of religion, free speech, freedom of expression, right? It is. It's completely contradictory. But when we get into adultery, we get into which is it's bad, but I don't think it necessarily should be illegal. I think there should be consequences for it. But it's an interesting place to be, right? You shall have no other gods but me. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Thou shalt not worship any other graven image other than thy Lord God, for thy Lord God is a jealous God. God is a dick. Yeah. Yeah, he is. He's a bit of a dick. Again, we get very wrathy, right? Very wrathy, in that first, very possessive, exactly, very controlling, right? You need to do this, you need to do that. And that's the basis of everything for, the legal system. The legal system is the same way. And the thing that's interesting is nature has its own laws, its own set of laws that it exists by, right? If you look at any other living creature on the planet, right? Any other living creature on the planet, follows these natural laws, right? And these natural laws, okay, are survival of the fittest. The stronger, the more cunning, the faster, those are the things that survive. Everything else is food, right? That is the natural law of nature, right? That is just how nature is set up. Whether we are talking about a fucking amoeba, right? We go down microscopic, right? Whether we're talking about wolves, we're talking about bears, we're talking about, fucking gazelle, lions, tigers, bears, oh my. Okay? The natural order of everything around us is survival of the fittest. Without question. But we are the only ones that protect the weak. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with using your strength to protect the weak around you. I'm not saying not to, but I'm also saying don't make it a focus. Again, because you're putting energy into people that aren't going to pay off, right? And we kind of manipulate the laws of nature into our own society, right? So the rich and the powerful, right, would be considered the strong and the cunning, right, in this particular situation. But yet we have a society that's built around hating people that have money, right? Thinking that people need to limit the amount of money that they make, limit the amount of success that they see. And what is this for? This isn't because there isn't anything inherently bad with having a lot of money, right? We're judging these people based off of the money that they have. Now, the things that they do to get that money, there are certain things that, well, are kind of underboard, right? Those are the things that we need to be focusing on, not the fact that they have the money, but the things that they're doing to get the money. But instead of trying to focus on our own money, instead of trying to focus on our own wealth, instead of trying to focus on what it is that we're doing, at least a lot of the time, we attack those that already have money. We're like, well, give me some of it. Well, why the fuck should I give you any of my money? Why? What have you done to deserve money from me? Am I getting anything from you? We want to be given, but we don't want to put in. It doesn't make sense. Now, there's a lot of nuance to that, and we're not going to get political. This show is completely apolitical. We're not going to get into the politics of this. But at the end of the day, right, the poor have always demonized the rich, right? Whether it be due to privilege, whether it be due to, being born into a situation. And yeah, a lot of people are born into money. They had no choice in that, just like you had no choice of being born not into money. But you have a choice every single day to continue living in that. Does it make it more difficult? Are you ever going to be, Warren fucking Buffett? Probably not. But you do have a choice to make every single day. Do you want to continue living in that? Again, we want to give to ourselves. But we bitch and complain when it comes down to needing to do that. When it comes down to actually needing to look out for ourselves. You want to look out for yourself. Look out for yourself. Look out for yourself in the right way. That is the true focus of a Satanist. That is what Satan wants you to do. That is what Lucifer is trying to shine the way for you. You have the tools in front of you. You see everyone around you doing it. How many times have you heard of somebody becoming famous off of something? You're like, shit, I could have done that. Yes, you could have. What stopped you? What stopped you from doing that? What held you back? Maybe you need to examine the things that are holding you back and make better choices about where you are and where you're putting yourself. Instead of settling, and I'm the type of person that says never settle. Never settle. Never let your dreams go. I'm 37 years old. And by the time I'm dead, right? By the time I'm dead, I will have everything that I've ever dreamed of having. I will have multiple homes. I will have multiple cars. It's not a question. It's not if. It's when. And the when depends on me and what I do to make sure that those things happen. I mean, we can create resources, though. So I'll give you an example. Okay? I'll give you an example. When I was younger, something that always influenced me artistically was album cover art, right? The artwork that's on, the covers of like the CDs from my favorite bands, Slipknot, Marilyn Manson, Nine Inch Nails, right? And I told myself, I want to make those. I want to make cover art for big bands, not for like little local bands. I want to make cover art. So I did everything I could to put myself into a position to make cover art. I've done album art for Fear Factory. I've done album artwork for Sworn Enemy. I've done album artwork for Dawn of Ashes. Okay, I've done album artwork for many bands that are major bands. They've been around since the 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, right? Major bands. Now, how did I do that? I created opportunity, right? I was at a concert, my local area, big festival. Most people are there just enjoying the music. I found a way to get backstage. Then I found a way to have conversations with people that I've been listening to for years. Me, nobody, just out of the fucking blue. Hey, what's up? How's it going? Right? Let them know who I was and what I was about. And I was given an opportunity. It wasn't because I knew anybody. Is that some people just don't take advantage of the resources exactly. And what does that fall on? That falls on our own personal responsibility, the accountability that we have to have for our own actions, right? That's what that falls on, right? The resources and the opportunities are there. Are you going to take advantage of them? Are you going to create your own opportunities? And look, I know that this is something that's not going to jive with everybody. And this is completely segregated from any political leaning. Understand that. This is completely segregated from any political leaning. This is completely apolitical. I don't give a fuck if you're left, if you're right, if you're center. I don't care if you are an Irish unicorn vomiting asparagus. I don't care. Rainbow asparagus. I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. Satan doesn't care. Lucifer doesn't care. Lucifer doesn't care if you're a Republican. Lucifer doesn't give a shit if you're a Democrat. Lucifer doesn't care if you are apolitical. Because Lucifer is apolitical. Satan is apolitical. Baphomet is apolitical. Politics does not enter here. Which is one of the points of one of the arguments that's being made here about the laws of man, right? It's all good, man. It's all good, right? Okay. It's one of the arguments that Satan is making here, right? Is saying here, it's like, through LaVey, right? Is nature has its own laws. Why do the laws of man supersede the laws of nature, when we are all bound by the laws of nature, regardless of political leaning, regardless of anything. We are bound by the laws of nature. And this is proven by one simple fact: we will all die. The end of this journey is the same for every single one of us, maybe in a different way. We're all going to die. That is an inevitability. That is going to happen. But it's how you live your life, that's what matters. And how you live it for you. Satan is the king and god of this world. Satan, Lucifer, find enlightenment. Lucifer is shining his light bright as fuck for everybody to see, and nobody's looking. Nobody's looking. Baphomet is at the apex, the balance. Baphomet is indirect. Baphomet doesn't care. Exactly. See, Baphomet doesn't care. Baphomet's at the apex. Baphomet is balance. Now, unlike the Judeo-Christian concepts, right? We, one, accept that we're polytheistic. We are polytheistic. And many gods from many different pantheons can come into this. But the way that I look at it is a trinity, the unholy trinity. Baphomet is at the apex. Baphomet is balanced. Baphomet is indifferent. Now, you can reach and you can try to speak with Baphomet. But there are two aspects that align right below Baphomet to kind of delegate everything else. We have Satan, Lucifer. Again, Satan, Lucifer, devil. Same entity, different aspects of the same entity. And Lilith. Baphomet is both male and masculine and feminine. Those aspects are separated and delegated below Lucifer and Lilith. That is your unholy trinity. Now, the other demonic entities do enter, which is why at the beginning, of Black Mass Sunday, we hail Hymen. Right? But and we hail the aspects of the Dark Lord, of the Dark Prince. Right? We hail the aspects. Hail Satan. Hail Lucifer. Hail Lilith. Right? We hail these aspects because through those aspects, we are better connected to ourselves. We have a better understanding of our animalistic instincts inside of society and the things that we need to be doing for ourselves, for our own growth, for our own production. Let's not lose ourselves in the nuances of society and understand that the things that we are basic. The things that we need are basic. And that the only thing that we are going to guarantee is what we can give to ourselves. What somebody else gives you externally, awesome. Good for you. I'm glad that you got somebody to give you something, but do not rely on it. Our entire lives, from when we're children, we are taught to rely on something bigger than ourselves to give us something instead of going for it, right? You want that special toy? Ask Santa. Santa will get it for you, and then you wonder why at the end of the I didn't get it. When I was a little kid, my parents fed me that. Santa will give you whatever you want as long as you're good. In my entire childhood, the one thing I always wanted was a Power Wheel, right? I don't know if you guys remember those or if any of you know what the fuck those are, but those little Power Wheel cars, right? The battery in it, it's like a little fucking four-wheeler or Jeep, it drives around, right? Exactly, tree sap. So when I was a kid, I always, right? I was dying for one. I fucking wanted one so bad. Every year,
since I was like 5. I was asking, I want Power Wheels. Santa, I want Power Wheels. My family couldn't afford it. So every Christmas, you know, I would just get clothes. Hot Wheels, okay, so those are little cars, right? The Power Wheels are, kids could actually drive. It has like a battery, right? But one year, because I kept asking for it, right? I think I was 9, right, when I got this. So I kept asking for it. So it's like 4 years now. Like every year, all year, I'm asking for it. I want Power Wheels. I want Power Wheels. I want the Jeep Power Wheels. I got a unicycle. I never used it and never learned how to ride the fucking thing, but I got a unicycle. And my parents fed me that, oh, well, Santa must got confused the Power Wheel and just gave you a 1 wheel. Point of the matter is since we're kids, we're taught to rely on somebody else to get us the things that we need, right? And I think it is significantly more valid to teach our children to learn and understand that if they want something, they need to work for it. We can get it ourselves. Nothing else is going to get it to us. Satan, oh dear birds, right? Satan and Lucifer are not going to give you shit. Satan, Lucifer, Lilith, Baphomet, they're not going to give you shit. You need to work for it and earn it. They can shine the way. And when you earn what it is that you're asking for, you will get it through work, dedication, and sacrifice of your own. Power, you want power? It's there. You have it. You just need to unlock that shit. You want magical ability? It's there. You can unlock that shit. But you have to do the work. It's the reason why it's called the craft. Regardless of it being the left-hand path, it's still a craft. It's something you need to work on, advance on, focus on, learn about. It's all those things. So, one more. Number 6. I dip my forefinger in the watery blood of your impotent, mad Redeemer and write over his thorn-torn brow, the true prince of evil, the king of the slaves. That's what Jesus was. Jesus was the king of the slaves. And, you know, if you want to break it down, you want to look at the Bible and how the Bible and Christianity and everything built around it thinks about us. We're sheep. Ignorant. Weak. Without direction. We need to be herded. We need a shepherd. Which is why the whole idea of the wolf, right, in the Bible paints that Satan is the wolf. Satan is the wolf trying to eat the sheep. The wolf is just trying to survive. And if you're an idiot and you're herding your sheep all in one spot, you're making an easy target. The Abrahamic religions are religions of slaves. Yes, 100%. 100%, Tree Sap. Without doubt or question. Exactly. We are cattle to the Judeo-Christian God, to the Abrahamic God. We're cattle. That's all we are. Which is why another reason at the beginning of this, the beginning of all of these, hail thyself, hail thyself. We reject the Trinity. We reject the baptism of John. And we reject the baptism of the Spirit. Which is one that people miss. People miss the baptism of the Spirit. Apparently, Jesus wasn't only baptized by John the Baptist, but Jesus was baptized by the Spirit. The only one to be baptized by the Spirit. And we reject that. Why do we reject that? Because it doesn't exist. It's bullshit. It's not real. It's to keep you reaching for something that you're never going to attain. That was the whole idea that existed. You get baptized through the same way that John baptized Jesus. Baptism of John. In the hopes of reaching the baptism of Spirit. To live a Christ-like life. A life that is completely unattainable. Same here. I was baptized Catholic. Ooh. Fucked up shit. You know? I mean, come on. I mean, let's be honest, right? I mean, any religion that thinks that, you know, half drowning an infant is acceptable to save their soul has questionable morals, in my opinion. Granted, now it's just like sprinkling a little water, but back in the day, man, it was right when I was baptized. That's what it was, right? I mean, I've seen video of that shit. It wasn't like a dip your head. No, it was like, you know, like an in and out kind of thing, right? It was like in out, right? You know, kind of thing, but you know, going full submerged, right? It's just drowning, basically. No better. Exactly. So, interesting shit. But, you know, and I don't want to turn this into a hate Christianity fest, but let's be honest. All of the guilt, the generational guilt that we all suffer from it, especially if we're American. If we're American, we suffer this generational guilt because most of our parents brought us up to constantly be afraid of shit that we can't see. Right? You know, when you're a kid, you're afraid of zombies, you're afraid of vampires, you're afraid of ghosts, you know. And, you know, the biggest fucking Baba Yaga of all is God. God is the biggest Baba Yaga of all. And we grow up being terrified as if whether or not we're going to go to heaven or hell. And so, why do you believe in God? Because you're either afraid of what God can do to you, or you're afraid of what the devil wants from you, because you're taught that the devil is just this horrible, horrible being that just wants to tear your soul to shreds, and this is not true. Success comes from within. Believe whatever it is that you want to believe, but believe in something, even if it is just yourself. But truly believe in yourself. Everyone, thank you very much for being here for this, again, the second edition of Satan and Coffee. All right, I hope you've all enjoyed your coffee and talking about Satan. Hail thyself. Hail Satan. Hail Lilith. Hail Lucifer. Hail Paimon, because we love the arts. And hail Baphomet. All of you have a wonderful new year. And we'll see you in 2024. Hail thy fucking self. Keep a watch out on the shop for those coffee cups. Peace out, guys.